Alright, we just pulled up out the front of Fix It Wreckers. We'll see if they have what I need. Alrighty, so I found a Daihatsu Feroza. There's a couple of Vitaras over that way. So I know they run pretty small 40 litre tanks. In the Feroza they bolt in underneath there. So having one of these, or had one of these cars before, got half an idea about them. So we'll rip her out and we'll see how well she goes. Well, that was a barrel of fun, getting that out on this angle. Fucking cow shit everywhere, but there you go. One Feroza fuel tank. It should fit. I know there's a Courier over there without a tub, so we'll go measure her up before I pay for it. So I've got it sitting on the back of the Courier. That's an exhaust mount. As we all know, mine's dumping down there, so I have plenty of room to make this fucker fit. That's where the original fuel tanks will sit. Obviously the diff is going to run underneath here, so I can push it over a bit. I might have to play around with this brake proportioning setup on mine, but I should be able to make this fit, I'm hoping, because it's $100 just for this fucking thing. Just gonna slap it straight up underneath somehow. But it's another 40 litre tank, steel, so it can take a bit of a bashing. It's in relatively good nick. I haven't checked the insides yet. I'll do that in a minute. Pulled it out of a Daihatsu Feroza, so she's a 40 litre, which gives me around about 80 litres in the car. Got to make up a new filler so I can split it off and choose the sides, and then figure out which way I'm going about dragging the fuel out, but I will be on a separate pump, so I'm going to pump from that tank to the other tank, so they're two separate. So let's get underneath and give it a go. So as you can see underneath, I haven't got the spare wheel in here at the moment. Let's try and get some light, because that's going up on top of the tub like I discussed previously, so that's going to give me a fair bit of room. As you can see with the tow bar, she sits quite a ways down, so that's going to add a bit of protection to it. Can also make up a skid plate. Now the biggest drama is I've got to get that spare wheel chain mechanism out, and to do that the tub's got to be lifted up, and I really don't want to do that at all, because I'm a lazy fucker. But that's going to be the gist of it. I will be pulling out that exhaust mount from up there, because, well, as you can see down the guts here, I haven't really got much of an exhaust sitting down there. So, but once I get this tank done, I'll be able to get this exhaust to pop out somewhere happier. But yeah, we've got to do the fuel tank first, so work on getting that mechanism out, and then I'll see what I can do about getting a fuel tank in here. Been fucking around for a better part of half an hour or so, just trying to figure out where I want it. This is roughly where it's going to sit. We're going to have some pieces that come straight down, and the tank's going to bolt to that, which is going to push the tank back a little bit further, which is what I need. So as you can see, I've got a little bit of clearance in between the leaf there. Come around on this side, I've got clearance between the shock there. The reason why I want to pull it back a little bit further is, as you can see, there's my brake line. Okay, there's my brake line, so I'll have to extend that to get around that. But if I go this out of the way, so it's a little bit of an issue underneath here. I believe this is the brake proportioning valve for the rear or something. It's kind of just balancing on that line just there, so we'll have to bend that the other way, which is no dramas. It's a fixed line. But my biggest issue is going to be this flexi line. I will have to chuck that extension in it and make up some brackets so it's got some nice bends in there, so she doesn't kink and still got plenty of room to move, because at the moment I dare say that'll cut straight through it, and no rear brakes. All good if you want to rip skids, but not my intention. but yeah, you're looking at about 10mm gap there, and it is sitting quite high too, so it is above the rear diff at the moment. This is unweighted, so we should have clearance between the diff and the tank once we start compressing the load, because that will push the diff back some more. So as the leaves flatten out, the diff will move further back. At the moment, I'm looking good unit of measurement, 3 fingers, which should hopefully be enough. But that's where it's balancing. I'm going to be pushing it back probably another 10mm or so. So maybe 4 fingers, because you know Karen's a bit of a loose cut. But yeah, this is where she's going to sit. It's not too far back from the axle. Oh, kicking shit. So weight should be pretty well good. It's going to be in the centre-ish. Not really, it's going to be more towards the passenger side, but it is what it is, which means I can now finally plan on which side the fridge is going. Because I'm trying to even out the weight as much as possible, because I've got this tank here. The spare wheel's going to be on one side as well, so I'm trying to distribute that weight as best as possible. Alright, so we've got the rear mount mocked up. Now she's only just tacked together, and I thought about welding the piece straight to the top, but what I'll do is exactly what I've done there. I'll just bolt it through that section. And then obviously my bolt holes will go straight through there. That'll hold the tank there. So this is pretty much how it was held in the Feroza. It had bolts going straight up, so the tank lip was actually on the bottom. Now if we slide in underneath here, this part here, which obviously goes to each of the drums, and the hose comes up. This is getting trickier because I'm running out of light. And then it comes up over here into a piece there, and hard lines out up into the brake proportion valve up the top. What I am planning on doing, and what I'm going to order as soon as I get off, or get all this out and back to standard, I'm going to order another one of these lines, because why the fuck not, just in case if I fuck it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up facing this hose towards the fuel tank, which means I'm going to have to make a new hard line, and I think I'm going to hard line it over to the back of the fuel tank here, which will give me my hose. The only reason why it goes up here is because there's a bracket just up underneath here. I'll show you in a second. I won't continue talking about it. I'll show you in a second after I remove the fucking tank and everything. Tell you what, I'm really sick of hitting my fucking head and getting dirt thrown in my face, but full drive life. Okay, now as you can see, this is the hose we're talking about. It runs up. This is just mounted here, then runs into a hard line and back out into this piece. So the plan is to move this, or make something up and move this over to that side, turn this around so we can have our hose hopefully sitting on this side, because the fuel tank at the moment is doing that to it. And I've already bent this line pretty good just using it to balance the fuel tank on, but the fuel tank will end here. So if I move all that out of the way, and if I turn this round, I'm still worried that it might rub on here a little bit, but we'll have to work that out as we go, which is why I'm buying another one. Yeah, it should be all out of the way, which means I'll have another fuel tank that runs up underneath here just over the diff, so we're not pushing the weight too far back. Still well and truly below the tow bar. So yeah, what I'll do, I won't even finish welding up this just yet. I'll wait for those parts to come in, because if I need to make any modifications, like I've already snapped the weld just fucking hanging off it, I'm that skillful. It's only just tacked on one side basically, just so I can get an idea. But once that arrives, I haven't drilled any holes for this yet, because I've got to work out the front mount, and that'll give me room to slide it side to side and find the most optimal position for it between the leaf and the shock. because that's my two issues at the moment. And moving this back, before this, the tank was balancing probably about here. As you can see, I've moved it back probably about 10 odd mil or so. About there, actually. I've still got this gal bar sitting here, or gal right angle, I should say. It's only just long enough. So before it was balancing just in on this lip, which will put this back about another 10 mil, which gave me a little bit more clearance from the diff when that comes up. So we're back underneath the car. I went and picked up this piece from the wreckers. It's got the hard line, it's got the flexi line, the entire bracket. So that entire bracket, that flexi line, oh, diff's still on, that hard line as well. So what we're going to end up doing is, the reason why I wanted the bracket was because of this piece here. Makes life easier. So what I'm thinking about doing is just chopping it off around these bolts here somewhere, bolting it up against there, and then running the line down to here, but facing that piece around, because the tank finishes about there, which means everything should be on this side. We'll soon see how well that works in a second. Alright, so I had to put a stop to doing the brake line because I needed some extra bits. Essentially just the brake line to go between that bracket back to the proportion valve, so that's on hold for the moment. The fuel tank's actually sort of bolted in. I'm using the clamps just to hold up here because I haven't drilled any of the holes yet. I won't do that until I've actually got the mounts completely finished, because they could sit a bit differently once fully welded and bolted in properly. So you've already seen the rear one earlier, but let me get underneath the diff here so you can see the front one. The front one, using a 30mm piece RHS just to give me a little bit more playroom when I'm mounting that flat strap. Flat strap goes up to the bottom of the tub to where there's actually some 6mm threads already in there. I'm a little bit skeptical on 60 kilos of weight bounced around on two 6mm bolts, so I might end up welding that strap to the tub. Shouldn't be an issue if I ever take the tank out. Could always cut them off, but that piece isn't going to interfere with anything anyway. So that's where we're up to. I can fully weld up my brackets and give them a paint, and then once I figure out what I'm doing with that brake line to go through that other piece, this is still the factory one sitting in there because I'm not ready to bolt this tank in yet, because I've still got to do the fuel level sender and how I'm pumping it from this tank to the other tank. Well, I've already ordered the fuel sender gauge. I've just got to make it work with the factory fuel sender. The fuel pump I ordered, fucking China people claiming they're in Australia again. Oh, we haven't got stuck. Well, fuck you, mate. It's all good. So I've still got to do that, but I've got a bit on this weekend, so I won't get time to work on the car. And then next weekend, going camping. So once again, won't have time to work on the car, but this is going to be it for the fuel tank install. We'll call this one part one, I guess. Which is all about the mount and everything, so you've got a bit of information. And I've got a video to post this week, but yeah, part one. Part two obviously is going to be the final installation and the fuel level and how I'm pumping it out. So I'll leave you at that.